So we're continuing to talk about file input and output. And again, all that means is having your programs have the ability to save some data to a file that gets stored on your computer, or read that data from the file back into the program to use it. Okay, but before we look at a couple of examples, I think it's helpful to have a little bit of a picture of where everything is getting stored, or basically what all the parts, the main parts, are inside of a computer. I think it helps in understanding this whole concept of why we want to store things in files. So you probably all know this to one degree or another, but a computer is really made up of a couple main parts. Okay, so you have internally, you have the CPU, central processing unit. That's the thing that actually executes all the code. So as you guys are writing instructions, if statements, etc., the CPU is the thing that really runs everything. And then you have another area, or a couple areas inside your computer, that are called storage areas, and that's where everything just gets stored. As you're running your program, there's all sorts of things to keep track of, all sorts of data to keep track of, and all that gets stored in these storage areas. And the storage areas are kind of divided into two parts. You have your memory, or your RAM, and then you have your hard drive. And both of these things are meant or are used to store things, but they kind of do it in a little different way. So really, up until now, we've mainly been talking about just memory, or RAM, as we've been talking about storing things. And memory, or RAM, is kind of, you've hopefully recognized this picture here. Okay, memory or RAM is kind of just like something that's just got a bunch of slots to keep track of values of variables. Okay, so that's used to store data while a program is running, and it stores that data in variables. So every time we write a program and we say int x, or string name, or double balance, or something like that, we've been saying that that just creates a variable, which is basically just adds a name to a slot in memory, and then we can store values there. So this picture right here might represent what memory would look like if a couple different programs are running and storing some values. So maybe there's this area down here is being used by some banking program that's keeping track of a customer name and the balance of somebody who's using that program. Maybe this area up here is being used by a different program that's keeping track. It's a game that somebody named Joe is playing, and it's keeping track of the name of the player, how many lives they have left, what their current score is, and so on and so forth. Okay, so lots of different programs in a computer are running at the same time, and they're all given some amount of memory that they can store all the data in that they need to keep track of as that program is running. Data like these things. So that's, up until the time we started talking about files, that's pretty much all we had in terms of where we could store our data. But the problem with memory, or RAM, is that as soon as a program is done running, as soon as you close a program, that memory that was being used by that program to store the data, basically is, all of that stuff is erased essentially. And really what happens is it's just given to another program that then just overwrites that. So this is only temporary. This data is only stored here as long as that program is running, and as soon as it's closed, it's basically, you can imagine it going away. And not only that, but as soon as you turn your computer off, as soon as the power of your computer goes off, everything in here gets pretty much essentially erased. Okay, it's all, you can imagine it all going to zeros or whatever you want to think. Okay, and then when the computer's turned back on, all of this is pretty much, again, kind of, just imagine that it's erased, it's blank. Okay, there's most of this data is just gone. Okay, so this is all, again, memory is all being used for temporarily storing your data while the program is running. But most real programs don't just want to keep track of the data while the program is running, but oftentimes they want to store that data for the long term, or store that data persistently, where it will be around even if you close down the program and open it up again. Okay, you can get at that data again. Or if your power goes, you turn off the computer and turn it back on, okay, you can get at that data again. Okay, so that's what files are being used for. So on the hard drive of your computer, okay, you store files, and files don't really look like this, but you can kind of picture this kind of big storage space that just is a place where you can stick files. Okay, and files, again, are the same, I'm using this word to mean the same thing that you use all the time. You use Word documents, so that's a file that you save on your file that you save on your computer, and so on and so forth. Okay, so we can have files with names like bankdata.txt or gamescores.txt or something.doc or whatever it may be, and we can save data that's running in our program to a file so that that file will stick around even after that program is closed or that program or the power goes out. Okay, that file has that data, and we can then get at it again later. Matter of fact, we can just go look at the file directly if we want to. We can just open it up and see what's in there. But the main thing is that later, when our program starts up again, and we start running our program over here in the memory, and we start basically creating these variables again, we can read that data back in from the file that's storing the data over here. Okay, so the hard drive over here is, again, storing that data persistently in files. It sticks around. But we have to write our programs to tell them to take the data that we have stored over here in our variables and send them to a file to store them. And then vice versa, we have to tell our program when we want it to read some data in from a file back into our memory. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. And I think if you just kind of think about this a little bit, you can kind of think of some things that would naturally get stored in a file versus some things that wouldn't. Like, for example, if somebody's actually updating some information about their bank balance, okay, we're going to want to keep track of somebody's bank balance over time, right? We're not going to just say, okay, you got a $200 balance right now, but then you close the program and you open it up again and you're back to zero, right? So that's the type of thing where we'd want to take data like this and actually send it somewhere into a file where that gets stored more long term so that we can keep track of that person's balance over time. You know, a game like this, we may or may not want to keep track of some of this data over time. So Joe, he has 3 lives left. Well, maybe we only care about how many lives he has left while he's playing the game, and as soon as the game's over, we'll just set it back to 0 again. So maybe we don't need to store that from day to day. Maybe his score, same type of thing. Sorry about that. Hold on a second. Maybe we don't need to keep track of his score. Maybe the score is only important as he's playing the game right now. Maybe we don't need to keep track of it over time. Or maybe we do. Maybe this is a type of game where you keep track of somebody's score, and they close the program, they come back in, they still continue on with that score, and so on and so forth. Okay, if that's the case, then we would need to take some of this data and basically store that in a file over here like I've shown here, where we're storing the person's name and their data. And it's as simple, literally putting the data in the file is as simple as calling print statements, like print line statements, and telling it to write the data into the file. So last thing, and then we'll actually look at an example. I've been saying that programs would want to store their data in files. Well, let me just again remind you that sometimes instead of storing things in a file, we'd actually store them in a little bit more robust solution, like an actual database application. So some of you have worked with databases like Access. Matter of fact, all of you have worked with database systems like Access, or there are more professional systems like Oracle. There's all these names of these big database systems. Okay, and programs oftentimes will actually store their data in a database, but in the end, a database system is really, in the end, still storing all that data somewhere on a hard drive. So it's not really that much different than just writing it directly to a file. Okay, a database system gives you a lot more capabilities, but the principle is the same. Okay, you're storing that data to some sort of location on your hard drive in the end, so it can stick around.